I'm live. Hello, good morning. It is Friday, the 28th of April 2023, and I am reading So Moses Was Born, and this is one of Joan Grant's far memory books. She was a seer. She died in 1989, and I explain at the beginning of each chapter a little bit of the background. This story is from the eyes of Nebunefer. He is the brother to Moses, who becomes the Pharaoh, and the brother of Karadan, who is the vizier or the vizier, the money man in the palace. The last chapter dealt with the birthdays. Moses has to declare an heir, and the Nebunefer and Karadan have to verify that this child is born of Horus. So we are now at the second part of birthdays, and I am reading. I agree that our fears are groundless, but I suggest you mention my dream to no one, not even Pempi. If it became known that I had even the most ephemeral cobra at the back of my mind, they would be smuggled in baskets to the birthroom. And though I already bear the scars of Duat's nails, a cobra's fangs are far more conclusive. In spite of having treated my dream as trivial to Karadan, I was disappointed when my most fervent prayers let me see nothing but a most ordinary baby, when late the following night Thomas put a male child in my arms. His face was dusky as blue grape, but this, so Thomas assured me, was a condition due to a slow birth and did not indicate that the Nubian page had been more alert than Karadan's precautions. Another boy and yet another were born on succeeding days, so very ordinary, so small, so helpless, and yet so powerful in their dependence that when one of them bubbled mucus when he tried to draw air into his lungs. For Thomas I went without sleep for 2 days, until he could suck strongly at the nipple of his wethers. I learned a new kind of weariness, the weariness of giving every iota of vitality to a stranger who demands everything, because it never occurs to him that one is not overflowing with abundance. I went home to sleep. The unborn seemed to feel the urgency of horses in a chariot race, for the first cry of one seemed to challenge another to strain for freedom from the womb, as though they were greyhounds on the scent of gazelles. I became so used to letting Apu drive me home because I was too tired to take the reins, to letting Penpi bring me a tray of food and bed before I fell into sleep, that was still able to feel surprise. But I was still able to feel surprise when Karadan said, "Tomorrow we will know, Neb, if it is to be tomorrow. There is only one child still unborn to Pharaoh." I slept until noon and woke strong with joy, for I had been with Sensen, and she had told me that within 3 days I would hold in my arms the promised son. Without bothering to do more than put on a loincloth, I ran to seek Penpi and Karadan in the garden. I was so excited that my words tumbled over each other like puppies playing in the sun. "Everything will be all right," Sensen told me. "He will be born within 3 days. I've never seen her more vividly. He will have a small birthmark shaped like a leaf on his right ankle. We must send a messenger to summon Moses immediately." Karadan, who had been pruning a rose bush, straightened his back as though he suddenly felt a heavy burden lifted from his shoulders. Pempi dropped her flower basket and flung her arms around my neck. For a moment, the three of us were caught between laughter and tears. "It is easy to be wise after the event," said Karadan. "But, of course, we should have all known that Moses saw Horus after the last child was conceived, because the chosen son is the last to be born. How stupid of me not to have realized the importance sooner, for it would have saved you much needless effort, and myself much needless anxiety." "And Maria is the nicest of them," said Penpi. "I ought to have guessed Horus would choose her. I hope the baby inherits her colouring, for her hair is the exact shade of new copper, and her eyes are almost a true green. Red-haired women are inclined to be temperamental, said Karadin. Well, she isn't. The only reason I haven't spoken about her more is that she is such a gentle, unobtrusive little person that she never caused any trouble. I will now go to compose a suitable letter to Ramoses, said Karadin, informing him that we have every reason to expect splendid news for him in the near future. It will be a pleasant change, I assure you, from sending him disappointing news in a sufficiently tactful manner. Oh dear, did I forget to tell you? Pempy put her hand to her forehead. Yes, I did forget. I was worried this morning, for Nat looked so tired that I couldn't bear to think he might have to face another disappointment. Forget what? Said Karadin patiently. That Fenru came here last night to say that Ramoses will reach Memphis this afternoon. Apparently, he has been feeling the suspense as much as we have, and wants to be at hand, so that he can hear the news without any needless delay. Then may the gods be praised for Neb's dream. Breaking bad news to Ramoses in person would be even worse than trying to write it in suitable words. In the distance, I heard Apu calling my name and knew he would have waited to find me unless the matter was exceedingly urgent. I shouted and he came running through an opening in the hedge of roses. Patamas has sent for you to come immediately, he panted. I've told one of the grooms to harness the red mares. Shall I come with you? Said Pempy. No, you had better stay in case Ramoses comes straight here instead of waiting at the royal residence. You can cope with him better than anyone else. At all costs he must be prevented from going to the old palace, exclaimed Karadin. No one will continue to believe my carefully nurtured story that the place is only being used for Patamas to do some research into modern methods of midwifery. If Pharaoh arrives there, especially in a state of extreme agitation, Neb, don't worry about Ramoses. I will look after him. But you had better hurry. And put some clothes on first, shouted Karadin as I ran towards the house. Apu had the same thought, for he met me on the terrace carrying a kilt and a pair of sandals. I'll drive and you can dress on the way, he said breathlessly. Only someone who has tried to arrange the pleats of a kilt in a chariot at full gallop knows how difficult so familiar a gesture can be to be performed. As I ran down the passage leading to the birthroom, I saw Patamas coming towards me. Why such haste, Nebi? Is he born yet? No, and unlikely to be for several hours. His mild amusement made me conscious of my dishevelled appearance. Apu said I was needed urgently. The message must have grown in transit. Or did Horus send you a message? He said shrewdly. How did you know? He laughed and led me to his room. Now sit down and get your breath back. Your heart is beating faster than the hoofs of your horses when they galloped into the courtyard. So, this is the child we have been waiting for? I'm glad Horus did not tell you sooner, or I should not have had the pleasure of your company during our earlier efforts. I will now go to see how the future royal mother is progressing. The hours passed slowly. Patamas remained calm, but I gradually began to see that he was growing anxious. Mara was pathetically grateful for the little we could do for her. Sometimes she grasped my hand so tightly that she whispered an apology. I told her that she was bearing the child who would rule Egypt, and she said that she would try to show courage worthy of him. So this is the end of this chapter, and the next chapter is entitled Dawn Hour. I shall have to read that soon, because I love the story. Don't know how many chapters are left. Not much. Have a happy Friday.